So I'm just going to review from from Tuesday, just the mechanical voicing. So let's get somebody who feels really uncomfortable with doing this kind of stuff.
I just need to digest everything.
Great. Okay, you're going to be my guinea pig. Why don't you come on up?
Oh, crap.
It's all good. All right. So it's normal to feel overwhelmed because you're getting a ton of information, but you're just going to be using it eventually.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so we're just going to voice this in 4-part mechanical just there. Yeah. First of all, mechanical. What scale does it use? Yeah. F7 sharp 11. What's your chord scale?
Is this a flat or not?
It's a natural. Yeah.
Um,
So it's not Mixolydian.
is it Lydian?
Yeah, Lydian what?
Lydian dominant?
Right. Okay, so just write Lydian dominant there. So we have our. That's cool. Right. Another name is Lydian flat 7. So cool. All right, so let's voice the first one.
Go ahead.
Good.
Oh,
4 notes.
would this be the melody?
That's the melody. Pretend that the scale is actually melody.
Can I use a bass?
Absolutely. Yeah. Here, you can just add to what we're doing here. So.
We're doing mechanical.
Yeah. So just close voicing. So their first note would probably be
Two flat.
exactly. Good. Go on. And then third, right? Okay.
Oh yeah,
Perfect. Okay.
oh sorry.
So we have some options. It sounds like this. That's fine. How can we make it sound a little more hipper? We can work with the fifth, because the fifth is a neutral kind of tone. Got some color to it.
E flat. Or C sharp. Maybe.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So we work with the fifth instead of using a 13th, we use the sharp 11, which makes sense because we're trying to emphasize the sharp 11, right? Okay. Excellent.
So where you get those sharp 5 then? Those are sharp 5.
Well,
But we need to be here for
I apologize, you're totally right.
Oh
Yeah, my fault. Yeah, it should be a C flat or a B, right? Just right. Thanks. Yeah, it sounds like this.
Can you explain why it would be natural instead of this altered or C sharp?
No, because this Lydian dominant doesn't have a C sharp. That we decided. That's why you always have to know the chord scale up front before you do it. So next one.
E flat.
Yeah. Sharp 11.
There you go.
Oh, that's it. Keep going.
And we don't have to put the root, right?
No, there's a rule of voices.
Same thing.
Careful, you already got the A in the melody, right? So you don't need
Oh yeah.
So you already have the third.
Can you put the G?
Yeah. Inside the octave, so it's when remember they have to
Oh,
so
so
there.
here.
Good. Easy. You got it. Keep going.
Okay. Can you put the third here?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, you have to be able.
So you could add another tension if you want.
Which, let me see. Would be the G?
Yeah.
What would I put it here again?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Pretty dense, but that's
Oh,
what it
yes.
is. And the next one.
C. The third here.
Right. Now I purposely didn't put the sharp 11 in that one because kind of creates that minor second here. So we opt out, even though it says that we're not doing it. So next one. That's correct, but in a sense, we're kind of missing the third, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we could replace the G with the A. However, if you had the trombones accompanying that, that would be perfect.
Put in the G here,
Uh,
or just leave it in?
We'll just put the A in at the trombones. And last one. There we go. Yeah. Good. Anybody have any questions about how he did that? Okay. If you do it exactly the way he's doing it, reasoning it out, you're not going to have any problems at all. Okay. Now some of them look kind of weird and crunchy, but that's the close voicing. It is that. You got 4 notes within an octave. Okay. So it's going to be, sometimes you have 5 within an octave. And obviously you can open it up by doing the drop 2, right? Okay.
So for this, we want to have the sharp 11 in it, correct?
Yeah, because it's asking for it in the chord. I'm just going to take a picture of this for online. So when it asks for it, you're going to try and as much as you can. Right? Okay, good. So now, move on to, I'm going to erase this. And now the information you read about reharmonizing approach notes. Okay. So, let's see, JP, what's an approach note?
An approach note? It'll be a note that gave you the lead to go to another note?
Right, it's kind of like in the notes in between.
Exactly.
It's usually, it's approaching something, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, and you've already learned this in classical music, right? That, or classical harmony, that it's just the notes, like, that's a passing tone, that's a passing tone. So you can, in a sense, you can say that these are the strong notes, right? G, B, D. And then the notes in the between, you know, they're part of your melody, but they're approaching this, okay? So when you're creating mechanical voicings for every note of the melody, how do you do that? Well, in the style of this kind of writing, they would harmonize, they would voice every note. But how do they do it in a fashion that avoids repeated notes? And because when you, in a melody, when everybody's playing together in voicing style, you don't want somebody within the section repeating a note, right? You want them to play different notes because it'll affect the articulation. Okay? But we'll get into that more later. Okay, so if I was looking at this is just some G major. I could say that's 1, right? That's the root. I could say that's the 3rd, and then I say that's the 5th. Okay? Now, this here, the A, is the 2nd, right? Okay. So it's diatonically going to the next note. So we could call this an S2. That's the scale, the 2nd note of the scale, right? It's obviously tension 9 as well. Yeah, but anyways, it's functioning within there, okay? And then here, this is like the 4th note of the scale, right? Scale 4. Okay. So can somebody tell me what the type of approach notes that we use, the techniques, the names of them?
Use second, oh, yeah.
Like chromatic upper and lower neighbors, like, or?
Okay, so there's a chromatic approach, that's one, according to the chapter, okay?
Oh, and like diatonic then?
Diatonic, very good. What else?
Tritone substitution.
Yeah, I could do that. What else?
Secondary dominant.
Diminished, yeah. Secondary dominant, sure. Gets kind of complicated. Just a dominant, okay? I could literally
Oh, yeah.
put the dominant 7th of G major, which is D. I could do this. G major 7. Harmonize that as a D7, G major 7, D7, G major 7. That's one way, right? How did I do it? I'm treating those as dominant 7ths. But they're dominant 7ths of the target note, okay? So like, obviously we're in G, right? But, these are the targets. I'll circle T for target, so you know it's, okay? So as you can see, it can get complicated super quickly. But you need to understand what a melody, analyze and how a melody works, okay? Because once you have that, then you can decide, okay, which technique am I going to use? Because some don't work that well, some are better choices, right? And then again, I always say that in music, there's no absolutes, so there's always an exception, But if you follow those kind of rules, it'll get you guided in the right path. Okay. There's another one called parallel approach, right? So, now, well, just really quickly, let's just do that. Okay. Four there. Okay, so what you want to do is, this is the one, okay, now when you find your target node, okay. This is anticipated, we're anticipating the C major 7, right? Okay, that's fine. This is a target node. This is a node in between, right? Now, obviously it's on a strong beat, but it's coming, look where it's coming from. So here, what you want to do is, that's where I'm going to treat the approach node. Okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to approach this, okay? What you want to do first is you find out what to approach this. Okay, so there's way two ways of looking at this. You could say this is the 3rd of G major. This is also the 7th of C major, right? There's two ways of going forwards. 7th of C major, 3rd of G major. Okay, the most simple way to do it is called the scalar approach, right? Scale approach. So I know the diatonic scale is C major scale, right? So whatever these notes here, now I have the root and the melody, so I'm obviously going to make this a C major 6. Let's just change that. Yeah, okay. That's our target, C major 6. And what I do is I work backwards, never work forwards, okay? So this is your structure, your musical structure right here. You're going to take that and just take it one diatonic, this is a diatonic pitch, okay? From B to C. So A would be a G would be an F, E would be a D, okay? So it would just be this, it'd be really simple. Okay? Now obviously it sounds like a G7, which is totally fine. Now, the nice thing about this is no note is repeating. That's it here, okay? Now, that's one way of doing it, using the scalar approach. Now, there's a 2-page handout I gave you guys. Really refer to that. That's like your little guidebook, okay? That's the scalar approach. Now, there's another way of looking at this. Okay? B to C is chromatic, right? B to C. So, what I could do is just take this, I do a parallel approach, okay? So, it would be like this. The top note is moving by a half step, so everything else moves back by a half step. Now you notice I'm always working from the target backwards. Never work from the approach forwards, okay? So you have your structure and then you're going to move backwards. So C, B, A would be A flat, G would be G flat, E would be E flat. Yeah. So it's going to sound like this. Kind of like a fail-safe. And then you got to check it. It's like, okay, is there any repeating notes? None. I'm good. I'm in good shape. Okay. Parallel. What's the other one? What about a diminished? Okay. Diminished approach. And this is super easy. This one, you're just taking this and just go down to minor thirds. Now, because this is so easy, it's easy to overuse that. Don't overuse it because it's ancient music and it's corny. Okay. Let's see. What about, we said a dominant 7th approach, right? So all you're doing is, this is C major 6. I'm treating this as a dominant 7. So what's the dominant 7 of C major is G7, right? So I could do this. There's the G7. Okay. But there's a problem here. If you look here, 2 notes are being repeated. Okay? as you read in the notes about repeated notes and how to avoid them, is one way is you could cross voices, but there's just such an easy fix here. I could just do this, make that an A flat. G7 flat 9. I have every right to do that. Okay? No big deal. And then I immediately fix the problem. And it still sounds like a diminished approach. So the overlaps, okay? So, that being said, let's analyze this melody. Yes? Oh, good
So the
question.
parallel approach is just bringing everything from like a half step down.
Yeah. Or it could be a whole step too, right? Whatever your interval you're moving by the melody, you're moving forward to this. But you're always working backwards from your target backwards, not from your approach forwards, because you'll get the wrong notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is using the like a dominant 7 flat 9 like less? Is it harder to overuse than the diminished because you're assuming like the bass is playing the root note, and so it doesn't sound just the same as just everyone playing the diminished? Or
Does not matter because it's in passing. Okay.
okay.
That changes everything. It's the speed of the music.
Okay.
If this was all C major. See?
Okay.
There's no reaction. But if I did this, that changes the function of it.
Okay.
So
Fair.
it depends if it's,
Context.
yeah, context, and usually there's 8 notes. That's kind of like a key factor.
Okay.
Any question?
Yeah, so with the parallel approach, like, are the notes that you're choosing, are it's like purely in the idea of like being parallel, so it's not like super functional per se? Like,
Exactly.
right, it's just like,
non-functional.
it's just
Yeah.
that it happens to be parallel from whatever the goal, the
From
target
your
is.
target, yeah, it's
Okay.
parallel from your target. It's
Okay.
a musical choice. Yeah.
So you have to like adjust everything, like your bass line and everything else like fit.
You don't need to adjust.
You don't
it.
need to,
No,
okay.
you can let these guys rub against the bass line, the comping, everything, because they're in passing.
Oh, okay, as long as it's passive, okay.
Yeah,
I
as
see.
long as it's moving away, yeah.
Okay.
It's all about speed. Yes?
You can also free-harmonize the approach notes, correct?
Reharmony? Yeah, yeah, if you're comfortable, you could go in your own direction. But what you'll find is when you reharmonize approach notes, you're going to overlap at some of these things anyways. You know, they're going to overlap. Just like I said, I changed this to a G7 flat 9. Well, this structure is basically a diminished 7 anyways, right? G7 flat 9, the upper structure is a diminished chord. When it's rootless. Okay. Cool. All right, so the best way to do this stuff is just practice doing it. So, first of all, what's this note here in function of the melody to the chord?
11.
Right. So it's just 11, attention 11. That one?
Root.
Root,
Root.
third,
Okay.
So,
7, okay. This is 1. Flat 7.
third,
Third.
root,
Root.
9.
9. Very good. Attention down. Okay, so there's not really a lot of approach notes here. I can fake one here because this is essentially moving and passing, right? Okay, and it's a chord, nobody cares. It's still going to be fine. So that being said, this also could be the 4th of C major, right? 4th of C major, if you work backwards. So if I harmonize this, I'm going to voice this out. Okay. So what? It's a half step down. So the one way I could do it is I'll do a parallel, okay? Which I just take what's here and move it up a half step. There. And the reason why you want to do this, because I could do scalar too, but this is so diatonic, I'm going to play it. It's going to sound kind of just monotonous. Kind of monotonous, yes.
But so you're coming from a half step above or half step below?
Well, E to F, right? So a half step above.
Ah, I see, okay.
D to E flat, G to A flat, G to A flat. Oops. G to A flat. Sorry.
It's just C naturally.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah, you did
Yeah,
a B
C
natural and C
natural.
flat.
Oh, that's. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay, so I got. Okay, this gets a really beautiful sound. Now, if I work from here forward, I'm going to have an issue. I'm going to come up with some weird thing. Again, always know where your target is and move backwards. Okay. That's one idea. Now, the other one is, what about, okay, I'll do scalar. And that may give you an idea of what it's not like. So I just take, just move these up one diastonic step up, whatever according to the chord scale. Now, I see an issue right there, but anyways. Okay, now, I immediately see this minor second in here.
Yeah.
That's an issue. So my option is, well, make it a D. Okay? But then again, I started creating a problem having a repeated note. So I could cross the voices, right, with the instruments. But then if I start doing that, I'm thinking, well, maybe there's a better decision to be made, right?
Yeah.
And there is. The other one's much better, okay? Okay. So on this one here, I'm going to try something different. What's that?
You can try to understand.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a tritone sub of G7, right? That's all it is. Okay, let's try diminished. Fail-safe. Almost, but then look what happened there. 2 repeated notes. That's easy to fix because you could just cross the voices, right? You know, if this was trumpet 1, 2, 3, 4, you could do 1, 3, 2, 4, right? Can't tell the difference because it's the same timbre, right? Okay. So. Let's see. Okay, good. This is actually homework. We're just.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
That was the first 4 bars of Alice in Wonderland, right? Okay. So for homework, you have 3 songs here. You have Alice in Wonderland, My Romance, and Anthropology. The first one's pretty easy because it doesn't have a lot of approach notes. The second one's a little more complicated. And the third one's a bop tune, so you're going to have lots of approach notes. Yes? Extra? Okay. Everybody got one? So, we already did the first 4 bars of Alice in Wonderland, okay? So, what I want you to do for homework is you're going to mark the melody. You're going to analyze it just as we did, okay? And then you're going to do the next one, My Romance. Same thing. Mark the whole, every note of the melody. What is its function? Is it a tension, okay? What is it a target? Now, I always want you to label the target. Let's look at My Romance for a second. And you can label this as we're doing it. We'll do the first 4 bars. Okay. So, this here, okay, if we know this note is the 5th, right? Just put a 5 there in your score, okay? Now, when you have a pickup, 99.99% is there's an assumption that it's probably a dominant seventh going into the one, right? If you look at the end of the tune, it's a G7, right? So in this kind of style, just assume that we're working from a G7 standpoint. Okay? So I could say this is the tension 13 of G7, okay? Now here, this is approaching this, okay? Think of this as not part of the G7. Even though it is the flat 7, don't think of it as part of G7. Think of it as part of the C major 7. That knowing that, that scale, or that's the fourth, right? So we're going to put the fourth of C major, okay? Because it'll make it easier for you to understand how it's functioning, okay? Okay, and then this here is what?
7.
Right, major 7, okay, 7 in F major. Skip that one. Okay, so also, I think the big thing to do is circle your target note by circling the note, okay? Let's do that.
You want a different color, just circle.
Just circle it so you know. You say, that's my target, that's where I'm working from, okay? Okay, now this is the third of E minor, right? The flat 3. Circle that note because that's a target, okay? Okay, now moving backwards, the F, this is the passing tone, right? The F would be like the flat 2 of E minor, right? So let's just keep it as this, as that. Flat 2, okay?
Would you say flat 9 or flat 2?
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Here we kind of have a passing tone situation here. We know it's quarter notes. Okay, this is tension 9. Now let's work backwards. So we know that that is a target, because it's on a strong beat too. That's usually good away. Not always, but okay. Moving backwards to the A, what would be think of it as part of A minor. What is that? Right. Yes, 1. Okay. This is coming from that guy. This is the flat 3, it's fine. This is the flat 7, no big deal. This is the third. Okay, oops, we got a passing tone here. Okay. G, here's our target. There's our fifth. What's that? The A. From C major. 13? Yeah. Tension 13. Okay, now we understand how this melody is working according to how we want to beat it up and work with it. Okay, so when I'm doing this, my method is I always work from my target structure. So C would be, okay? That's fine. Now we have some options here. Okay, what approach note options can be used for the F? There's a bunch of them if you want. But
Diminished,
yeah, what else?
parallel.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. You do scalar, right?
You could also do tritone sub.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you choose an approach note technique that gives you 2 repeated notes, there's probably a better choice, okay? Just because what happens if you cross voices here, or here, sorry, then it's going to affect what's going after it. You might have repeated notes going on, and you got to just jump around. So start fresh like this. So what do you guys want to start with? We'll choose one.
Tritone sub.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's put TT.
Get real right away. Okay.
So why don't you come on up here and do it? So coincidentally, just quickly here, remember I'm treating this not as part of the G7, okay? We're treating this as the dominant of C major, which coincidentally is G7, right? And the tritone sub of G7 is D flat 7, obviously.
I guess you want me to voice it below?
Yeah, always, yeah, below the melody.
Okay.
Yeah.
7, then,
Let's put the fifth in there, good.
yeah.
Right, okay. We know that we have no tensions here, and usually you want to have one tension in this style, right? So our best choice is 9 replaces 1, okay? So immediately, it's the D flat or the E flat. If you have the root in your voicing, you probably have a better choice to be made. So,
Doesn't that give a second right at the top of the
it's okay, it's a major second,
major
as long as it's a
second?
minor
Okay.
second. That being said, if you had seconds all the way through, then I'd change it for sure.
Okay.
And I go back to the E flat.
Thank you.
Okay, so everything, F to G, E flat to E, C flat to D, A flat to B. We're all good. As you can see, what can happen is if you're doing this by hand, your chance of making typos is super high, okay? Super high, yeah. So if you use music notation software, I highly recommend it, but you really have to proofread your work. Because if this was within a measure, without the bar line, you'd already have mistakes, okay? Yes?
It said on the directions to use score format, is it okay to just put like in the check request like on the board if you want it?
Oh, either like on a separate sheet of paper, staff paper or music notation, yeah. You would
So we
put
use,
like 4
software?
states. What's that?
We use software to do this?
Absolutely.
You want four states?
But yes,
Four
yeah,
states? Okay.
yeah, 'cause one for each instrument.
Okay, thank you.
That being said, if you want to have a 5th state and just put your closed score stuff above it, that's totally cool too, okay?
Okay.
And as far as like marking the score, just mark on the paper, so that's separate from what we're doing, okay? Yeah, on the paper is fine. Marking in the paper is actually more important than actually you doing this, because it tells me that you understand what the melody's doing, okay?
Yeah.
The functioning. Okay, so anyways, okay, so we're good, yeah. Yeah, we all did that. Now E, I could do this. So, live at the Holiday Inn. So. Come on, everybody's seen the Blues Brothers, right? Okay, B, and I'm doing some little checks here. Oh, there's no repeated notes, it's gonna be great.
So, is it okay to have the repeated C flat to B because the voices technically aren't in line? Because you have a B major, or C major 7, B down in the bass, and C flat.
In the 3rd, it's
Yeah.
totally fine, because the articulation will be the same because they're different instruments.
Okay.
Yeah. If it was da, the same note to the same note, yeah, that'd be a issue.
So in effect, it's like voice crossing.
You're absolutely right, yeah. Good. Okay. Okay, here, what do we want to do here? Hello. So let's try something different. We did the tritone sub. Let's see. Andrew, what are you going to do there? Yeah. So you want to do, this is your target, you want to do scalar, chromatic, not really chromatic, parallel.
Diminished.
Okay. Oops, okay. Working from here backwards always. Okay, so my target here. Okay, you notice I put the root in there, okay? Here's a little note, on minor 7 chords, if the 3rd is in the melody, if I put the 9th, it's going to create a minor 2nd, because the minor 9th is an F sharp, right? It's kind of like a little exception, just like the C major and C major 6 chord, if you put the root in the melody, it kind of, you need to change it to a C6 chord. Well, it's kind of the same thing here, you can't really put you can, but it's going to create a buzz. And if you want that, that's totally fine, but for now, let's just do this. Okay?
Would you change it to a 13 or no, because it's in the bass?
Yeah, no, I'm just leaving it as 9 to 1, 1 to 9, the
Okay.
interchangeability of that. Okay. Now, so now he wants to do diminish, it's just super simple. I just go down to minor thirds. Yeah. Okay, then let's just voice this as F major 7. There. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, everything's working great. See how it's starting to really build beautifully, right? Okay, let's do this one now. Let's see. Let's get you to do it. Okay, so how do you want to approach this? using that.
Probably like parallel.
Okay. So A minor, moving down a whole step parallel, which would be what?
G.
Right, G minor, right?
Yeah.
So it should sound like that. So let's do the A minor chord first.
Right. So probably like a G
Yeah.
and A and
Mhm.
E, and then I guess a C, like just like a rootless.
Yeah.
voicing. Yeah.
Exactly, just spell out the thirds.
Oh, and
okay.
I would just do the same exact thing. So I would just do F, E, and D flat.
Right, yeah. Now, this has nothing to do with any of these chords. It's just a technique we're using. It's a parallel approach. Okay. Let's take a look at that. And the nice thing about parallel is always safe because you're moving parallel. You're never going to have a repeated note. Maybe something before, I don't know. Okay? And sure enough, there is a repeated note before. However, it's not moving in 8 notes. It's only moving in quarter notes. So it's not that bad. Okay? But if you really want to correct it, you could easily do a voice, cross voicing with the 2 Ds. D could go there, and that head goes there. You're totally fine. Okay? It's kind of pretty colorful. So you have to think, if you're writing a bassy tune or a super straight ahead tune, probably that'd be not my favorite choice to use. I'd probably go more to the diminished or the dominant 7 scalar. Okay, but still, this is totally fine. Okay, depending on the context and the style. Any questions so far?
Sorry, what was the dominant 7 method?
It's the dominant 7 of your target chord. Okay. For example, let's do one. Oh, this is perfect. Let's do it. So, what's the dominant 7 of G?
D
Dominant C is G, right?
Oh, G.
Now, coincidentally, this is G.
Oh.
Now, I already know, just by knowing that I'm going to have repeated notes, because it's the same thing, right? So, another option is, I could do the dominant 7. Why don't I just do a tritone 7 with the dominant 7, and I alleviate all that issue of repeated notes? So, G7 is going to be D flat 7, okay? So, that just gets rid of all my trouble. So, because if there's my G7. Okay, now I'm going to harmonize my target, which would be, Joe, what would be my notes for the target?
On a C major 7.
Yeah.
You do E,
Yeah.
D, B.
Good. Okay, so now I'm doing a tritone sub. So this is the D, oh wait, okay, D flat 7. However, there's an A there. So that's like a D. It's okay, we can still do sharp 5 or whatever we want to call it, right? It's totally cool. Okay. Just remember we need to have the chord tones of the D flat 7, so it's going to have an F third, obviously the C flat, okay, and then let's put a tension in there, tension 9.
E flat.
Exactly.
So is that what you would do, like if we go back to that A minor 7 chord and approaching that, because it has, if you were to use it as a dominant approach, you would have an E7 going to A, but with 4th in the melody note.
Right,
So
but then it's
that's
an
like-
E7 sus, which is totally cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you see? Yeah. But
Could
knowing
you play
that,
that real fast?
Sure.
Like if you were to do an E7 sus going to the A minor.
yeah, it would be my second choice though.
Okay.
Okay, so just remember, just pretend there's no repeated
Either
notes.
that or with like a parallel, but like from a B flat, would that work too? Oh, well, I don't know.
Let's see what it sounds like. This is a E7. Is it E7 sus?
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like. Probably gonna sound fine. Sounds beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be your first choice on that?
Yeah, after playing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one here, D flat 7, tritone 7 with a sharp 5. Sounds great. See, if I did the G7, like that one, you can already hear the repeated notes, which is fine, but in this style, you kind of want the chromaticism in there, okay? This can be actually a lot of fun doing it. You can really get crazy with it. Again, I can't say this enough. Always know where your target is in your melody and work backwards. Don't construct this structure. This structure should be made last. Work backwards. Always, always, Okay, so again, these instructions, if you have any questions, just email me, but just label them like I'm doing. And don't just write tension 13, 4, or 5. What are you doing? You're doing a tritone, what dominant 7 for 5/7, or CH for chromatic, or P for parallel, or S for scalar, okay? So I know exactly what you're thinking. Yes?
So when we're looking at the first 4 bars.
Okay, no, okay. You're gonna do this for all the melody, all the way through for all 3 tunes, but you're only gonna voice the first 4 bars of each tune, okay? Yeah, no, I don't wanna kill you. Just, woo! Because if you can do the first 4 bars, I already know you can do everything. Okay? But the hardest one will be anthropology, okay? For sure.
So you just want us to do like the analyzations with like the T9 and all that
Absolutely, yep.
for Edmonton?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then write in what technique you're going to use. Because if you just give me a bunch of voicings, what's going to happen is I'm going to have to figure out your technique, and then I'll figure it out. I'm like, well, is he using it properly, or is this just an accident? So if I know you're doing a diminished technique, whatever, approach note, and you did something like a scalar, then I know you made a mistake. So it makes it very clear to me what you're thinking of. So, super valuable stuff. Okay, that's that. And then oh, you had a question.
Yeah, just about like when trying to get in, can we do the voicings and everything on finale, and then after that write all of the other information in pencil, like all of the tension notes and stuff like that?
If you want, I'd rather you prefer using pen and pencil, put it on the original, and then just do the finale score separate. That's what I prefer.
Oh.
Okay. Think about that second.
Oh, do all the
Yeah.
penciling stuff on this original.
Absolutely, right in the original, you can
Got
add
it,
that.
got it, sorry.
Yeah, and they're notated separate. Remember, it's just only the first 4 bars notated, okay? Of each tune. All right, drop 2, I handed this out. Yes?
You want us to circle the target now?
Absolutely, circle the target. Yeah. Just like as I'm doing now, okay? And again, I'm going to say this a million times, if you start creating the structure here before you do this, there's a very good chance you'll get this wrong. You got to do this first and move backwards, okay?
So are we keeping all of the 4 parts in concert pitch?
Yes, concert score, actually. So it's going to be 3 trumpets and 1 trombone, okay?
All
Yes.
concert.
All in
why,
concert, yeah.
why is
Be
the
careful of
first-
your ranges, yeah.
Why is the first note in the 3rd bar not a target note?
First note in the 3rd bar. Here?
Just C.
The D minor, the D minor 7.
Why is it not a target note? Let's see. Well,
Yeah.
good question. Well, there's nothing really moving to it, okay? There's no passing tones, there's no auxiliary tone, register, nothing, right? It's just that's it. But if I did this, a D flat, and then that, well then I have a target note. I have an approach, D flat's approaching the target, right? So, all right, so the drop 2, just for your own reference, you've got giant steps in there, and then I think it's the Cherokee Bridge. Yeah, just shows you how the drop 2 works. Just remember, these are rootless voicings, okay? I'm just writing the root so you can see it. It's really good to just sit at the piano and play these things. Okay? All right. Okay, good. Your other handout is called spread voicings. Spreads are also called open voicings. What's the difference between a spread and a mechanical voicing?
Well, spread's more than an octave.
Say again?
The spread is more than an octave.
It is, yeah. But the number one thing is you have the root in the bass. So it's being played by the baritone sax or the bass trumpet. Okay? Spreads are always like that. So here I have my root is voicing, C minor 7, and then I just do this. Then the root in the chord, 5 saxes. That's called a spread voice. Okay? Now, obviously the spread is more spaced out. It is less mechanical sounding, and your emphasis is going to be on adding depth, fullness, bottom to the sound. So that being said, if I was playing a fast bebop tune, the last thing I want to do is write spreads. I don't want to do that. Your better choice is the mechanical voicings, because they're condensed and they're easy to move around. Because if you had a spread voicings playing always the root of the bass, you're going to have a lot, in a fast 8th line, you're going to have a lot of repeated stuff in the bass. It's going to sound too heavy. So, okay, and then if you look at the page 2 of the spread, it says, then In writing for large ensembles, the musical effect of a spread voicing is determined by the number of different pitches, the spacing of the notes, the number of dissonant intervals, the number of doublets, the distance from the top to the bottom note, and the orchestration. Okay, so if I'm going to play through all these. If I took the number of pitches, I'm going to go from 4 to 7 notes. Okay, the first one, F7 sharp 11. Okay. And then I'm going to add another note, make 5 notes. And another note, 6 notes. And 7 notes. So you have a nice big 7 note voice you can stretch between the sections, right? It's going to sound very, very rich. And one thing to be considerate of, if you look at the common denominator, is that you want to shoot for like a seventh of the bass, or between the first and second notes, like that, or like a 10. Okay, if you look at the first one here, in the spacing section. Okay, there's another version. And then if you want to make it sound more